Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine, where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. On today's episode, we are continuing with our new Freeze Frame series, specifically with our conversations from the recent National Restaurant Association show held in Chicago. Really, every one of my conversations seemed to come back around to off-premises, the rise in off-premises dining, and specifically third-party delivery. Everybody is looking for new technology to help their business, and the conversation keeps coming back to third-party and how this can benefit the business, but how you can make it work for your business without losing too much of that profitability. And that is no different than with today's conversation with Charles Watson, the CEO of Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Charles has been the CEO now for just about 6 months. He was promoted to the job on an interim basis last year, but was named permanent CEO back in January. And his job as a CEO of a company that is 99% franchised is to help his franchisees, as he says, find optionality when it comes to technology, to have options at their disposal for choosing the right solutions. Now, Charles is, and to some degree, he has sort of an unfair advantage. He came into a company that had just recently crossed 700 locations nationwide, has a lot of momentum, and is really occupying a popular space. I mean, this is the smoothie space after all, and with juice brands, acai bowls, smoothies, these things continuing to be very popular. Tropical Smoothie Cafe has carved its own niche. It's been around for over 20 years and has been able to plant some roots, I think, in communities across America, which, to Charles's advantage, coming into a position like that is a great spot to be. Of course, he's been with the company now for about 10 years. He was previously the Chief Development Officer, and now as CEO is overseeing continued growth. When he was named CEO, they announced that their goals were to hit $1 billion in sales and 1,500 units by 2023, and I think they're well on their way to doing that. So I was really excited to talking to Charles at the NRA show last week, just about what he was looking for at the show, how he's delivering that optionality to his franchisees, as he says, and really navigating today's restaurant climate, and then also navigating the future. As he talks about, you'll hear he gets pretty frank when it comes to what he sees for the restaurant industry in the next 2 years, and it's going to be tough. He's pretty honest about that, but I think he's also optimistic that Tropical Smoothie is in a good position to get through what's to come. Remember, go to QSRmagazine.com for all of the news and insights that you want on the QSR and fast casual industries, and also go subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Also email me, sam@qsrmagazine.com, with any thoughts that you have about this podcast. Thanks again for listening, and now I'm rolling into my conversation with Tropical Smoothie Cafe CEO Charles Watson. All right, sitting down with Charles Watson, the CEO of Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Sam. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Yeah, how is the NRA show treating you?
It is overwhelming, but always good, always good. Myself and about 3 or 4 of our team members are here and working the floor, as they say.
Yeah, what do you get out of a show like this? I mean, are you guys looking for new vendors? Are you looking to reconnect with current vendors, or what is it?
It's definitely, we're a relationship-driven business, so it's absolutely existing vendors that we like to spend time with. But yeah, we're out scoping what the new equipment is, what the new food trends are, et cetera. So sure. It's good for both. So about 6 months on the job on a permanent basis, yep. And you were also doing it on an interim basis, the CEO job. How does it feel? We were just talking before this about how lucky you are to kind of come into this brand that is just naturally growing and is in this great position. How do you feel about being the CEO? I'm giddy. Yeah. No, I really am. I'm extremely happy to have the opportunity. Very thankful to our franchisees and our board of directors to give me the opportunity, and I'm psyched. In layman's parlance, one of the things I told our franchisees at our last conference was this brand is just getting started, because the baseline of growth is there, the pipeline is there, AUV is climbing. Now is the time to make the changes and the investments we need to ensure the next 10 years, right? Yeah. And so not everybody has that opportunity if comps are down or the economy is a little shaky to be able to make the investments now to change ahead of something negative happening.
Sure. So you mentioned those changes and investments you have to make now for the next phase of growth. What do you see as being sort of key to what that next phase of growth is?
So I've got a simple-minded individual. I have two main pillars for Tropical Smoothie, and the first one is I'm a hospitality guy. I'm a hotel and restaurant guy, and it's hospitality. We're in the service business that never goes away. It doesn't matter how you deliver the product in the different channels that we're now delivering our product in. The guest experience has to be first. That's number one and always will be in my book.
Yeah.
Number two, you've heard it all this show, is technology, right? And for Tropical Smoothie, it's about the investments we need to make to create the foundation to be able to service that guest the way they want to be serviced. Our product has to be on the shelf in various different distribution channels. I actually went through this about 15 years ago when I was with Intercontinental Hotels.
Sure.
In the hotel space, went through the different channel migration with the Expedias and the Travelocities, et cetera. So I see some similarities in that and understanding that the brand is very, very important. But if you're not on the shelf, the consumer isn't going to buy from you.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine this must be kind of overwhelming. There's off-premises is I feel like is like the number one conversation among the industry today. Everybody's trying to figure out how do you make third-party delivery work best for you? How do you get the best mobile ordering platform, et cetera? What is your outlook on off-premises today? How you guys are sort of adapting that model and how you think it could set you up for success?
So I think that it is here to stay. What we don't know is what form it will take and what the profitability picture looks like, what consolidation looks like, both on the third-party side with ghost kitchens, with mobile. So much going on. So we're in an absolute state of disruption. So my job as a leader of our brand is to give us optionality. And that optionality, it goes back to creating a technological foundation in the restaurants and at our corporate support center to be able to attack those different distribution channels however they shake out, right? So that's what I'm primarily focused on. And then obviously, again, same thing with this show that you see is the relationship side. So it's our relationship with Easy Cater and Grubhub and Uber Eats and all the various folks, Postmates that are out there, understanding and having them hear our side of the story and how we're having difficulty with it so that hopefully we can work in partnership to ultimately serve the guest.
Yeah, well, I'm really curious for Tropical Smoothie's sake, which, this is a brand that is got a big chunk of business in snacks. Call it snacks and meal replacement with smoothies. I mean, you do have food too, but like how does especially sort of that snack smoothie component of Tropical Smoothie adapt to off-premises? Does it have that sort of a unique challenge? So
I would say with our business, just to give you some background, about 60% of our sales is in food and about 40%, 60% is in smoothies and 40% is in food. So pretty balanced there, which drives obviously our AUV and our comp sales because we have more to offer in our business. The smoothies travel pretty darn well, quite honestly, when you start looking at a 30-minute delivery time, et cetera. Back to that foundational technology piece of if that order comes in and we have some time stamp associated with it, we can better provide a quality smoothie product. I would also say we're doing a lot of work on the packaging side with our food. Our food does travel better than some of our competitors, but we got to get the packaging right, and same thing, we got to get the technology right so that we're preparing that order hot, and having the ability to get that in its best state possible to that end consumer. So I feel good about the products that we have and our ability to service that. The French fry debate, right?
Yeah.
French fries don't travel, et cetera. So we have those challenges as well. But it also, as we look forward and where we're going, I was speaking with Don Fox yesterday at Firehouse Subs, and he's a leader and has some very defined views. And it's about giving us the optionality to put our best foot forward in this channel, which may be a limited menu. It may be just the products that we can deliver best, and not only that, then you get into the pricing and the profitability side of it. Right. So if we have some more control over that, we'll be able to better service the end guest with value.
Yeah, there's so many vendors out there when it comes to technology. So many different choices when it comes to third-party delivery, and all of that. How much pressure is there to, from a franchise perspective, get this right so that your entire franchise system, can keep that on that, keep everybody consistent and on that same level? I mean, you have to make sure. I guess it just feels like a lot of plates in the air.
It is a lot of plates in the air. Absolutely. I'm trying to be a good juggler. I would say that there's a lot of pressure, but there is also a lot of hesitancy. from a franchise. We're 99.99% franchise. So my job is to support franchisees. Their job is to serve the end customer. So we've taken the stance that we're not getting married yet. We're gonna date. We're gonna date everybody, and we're in 44 different states. So though some of the big players are nationwide, when you're in a secondary or tertiary market, there may be smaller players that are playing there. We don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face and say we're not going to use XYZ delivery company because it may work great in Peoria, Illinois.
Right.
And so we've taken the stance that we want to work with everybody that it makes sense for and that our franchisees want to work with. My job is from a technological perspective is to make that easy. At the end of the day, our franchisees got in this business, number one, to live the American dream, right? To make some money, to be their own boss, all of that. But very closely behind that is I want to serve food and smoothies, and I want to serve the customer, and I want to put smiles on people's faces. Well, when I'm dealing with my point of sale system and 72 iPads and all the technical side of things, restaurants, especially in our space that are highly franchised, have to move to an enterprise technology model. Very different in our space, right? 30 years ago, go to NCR, go to Micros, get an electronic cash register, buy it, put it in,
right,
and start selling product and fax us what you owe us from a royalty perspective. Totally different ball game now, and we have to take on the lion's share and the brunt of the investment needed to make it easy for franchisees to run the core business and not be IT majors, so to speak.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think has led to so much of Tropical Smoothies growth recently? Because it's really the last couple of years has been just an incredible amount of growth in franchising. And what is it that resonates about this brand?
I think certainly right place, right time in terms of, our motto is eat better, feel better, right? So we want to be an approachable, healthier option for the average American, right? So I think that's very attractive to our consumer base, which then makes business ownership, interesting. I think that and the unit level economics that we produce, our business mix, as I talked about, 60% smoothies, 40% food, allows for servicing all day parts, right? So we're a lunch heavy brand for sure, but we do breakfast and afternoon snack time and dinner. So you've got more optionality as a business owner. So right place, right time, good unit level economics. I think our product development and the directions that we go, push the limits a little bit in our space. We put those healthier nods and some fun stuff out there from a culinary perspective that I think gets people's attention. And then thirdly, I would say at the end of the day, I'm a franchisor and my job is to serve franchisees. And I think that is in our core when we talk about our core values, solid relationships, creative spirit, play to win. Those are things that really resonate with business owners, that we are truly in partnership. Yep. We do not have a business without franchisees. So you've heard that a million times. That's what we live and breathe every day, and I think that's a big part of our success as well.
Sure. And you guys have a very embedded culture, too. I mean, the Camp Sunshine work that you guys have done has really been incredible. Recently recognized by the Restaurant Neighbor Award for it.
That was a huge honor. It was very much appreciated.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you lean into that culture and continue to invest in that?
Absolutely. So continuing to work with Camp Sunshine. So we've raised about $6.3 million over the last 12 years, and our goal this year is $1.2 million. Wow. So again, just getting started. I had the opportunity last summer to go up there, and our checks are now building buildings, right?
That's
So
cool.
I got to cut the ribbon at a building.
Cool.
That's major impact.
Yeah.
There are thousands and thousands of great charities. This is one that fit really well with us. We really like to be able to make that big impact, and our franchisees have really gotten on board with it. Leaning into it is really understanding and helping Camp Sunshine drive the message through our business units, what their core values and mission is, and how well aligned that is for us. So the lean in aspect is to understand that Tropical Smoothie, yes, our franchisees are in business to make money and to live the American dream, but like everything else these days, it's got to be more than that. There's got to be a higher calling, and I think Camp Sunshine encapsulates that for our brand, and fits well with both our consumers and our franchisees. So it's super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear from franchisees obviously all the time. I'm sure you're constantly listening to them. What are they telling you right now is like their biggest challenge? What's keeping them up at night that you're trying to solve for?
So two things, technology, which we've talked about, and then ultimately labor, right? And the cost of labor with low unemployment and the $15 an hour minimum wage, et cetera. Our franchisees are scared. I'm going to just put it right out there and say that. Does this business model continue to work? It does, and there's actions that we'll take. I hear a lot, whether it's in the press or the Wall Street Journal, et cetera, about it's a non-inflationary environment. Well, I believe restaurants are a bellwether of that, right? And so as wages continue to come on and the pace of technology in our space, whether it's POS or equipment or robotics and automation that we need in order to make those P&Ls work, isn't fully here. So we've got the headwinds hitting us at one time without the tailwinds coming to help us with technology and robotics. So it's a perfect storm, for the next 24, 36 months. And I had this question earlier, and I do think we get kicked in the teeth a little bit for the next 24 months. And I'm open about saying that. We're doing a lot of things on the back end to ensure franchisee profitability. If they're not making money, if franchisees aren't making money, the whole thing implodes. And so that has to be our number one thing that we're focused on. I think we do a pretty good job of that, but we certainly have challenges. One of the things I think about labor is it's not like this is the first time that wages have increased on restaurants. It could be 1997 again, right? It's a similar thing. So we will get through it, but it's what are the things on the back end that allow the franchisee to effectively and efficiently operate their business, and we got to find those quick.
You talk about getting kicked in the teeth in the next couple of years. I'm wondering, how do you balance knowing you're going to get kicked in the teeth a little bit with continuing to drive franchise expansion? I mean, what do you tell potential, prospective franchisees when you also know the next 2 years will be tough?
Yeah, and I think if you look at the average time span it takes from buying a franchise to opening a franchise, it's somewhere between 12 and 14 months. So there is a little time in there. And one of the things we talk about is we have a much expanded real estate team. So real estate is a fixed cost for franchisees. We spend a lot of time to make sure that the deal is right, because that's a huge overhead and fixed cost. At the same time, I say, gosh, we're up 50% in comp sales in the past 7 years.
Wow.
If you're going to bet on anybody, we're a good one to bet on.
Sure.
To the things I said earlier about being right place, right time, and our menu innovation and our really connecting with our guests. It's still viable. These are things that we're going to get through, et cetera. And like everything else, technology will come about and is in process right now to get us where we need to be. And I've got enough tricks up my sleeve to help franchisees along the way to get over that hump.
You guys have been around a while now, and
97
it precluded the sort of health movement.
Yeah,
and I find that really interesting because we are seeing a lot of other, juice, smoothie, bowl, and all these kinds of brands kind of come up. But you guys have been doing that for even longer than the trend was here. But now the conversation is really turning toward plant forward. People are talking about not just nutrition and health, but also just how you make this a regular part of the American diet. How do you look at that as being sort of one of the strengths of Tropical Smoothie to fit into this American trend, but also really movement and
Sure.
evolution of the American diet?
We say bring it on. We're ready to go. And, I started at Tropical Smoothie in 2010, and part of our thinking was scale. We need scale and distribution, et cetera. I was at an awards dinner last night, and there were a lot of the brands that you're talking about, whether it's other smoothie brands, acai bowls, the health forward folks. That's great. I love it. As just a human, I'm happy for Americans to start eating a little bit healthier and understanding what healthy is for them. Is it calories? Is it gluten-free? Is it whatever? So there's all these things out there to think through, and we want to take a more defined stance, but we also have a core belief that it has to taste good at the end of the day, right? So we want to provide on our menu optionality. We're actually doing a brand study right now with a firm called Interbrand to really hone in even more on our consumers. And it's a big investment by our board of directors that they've approved for us to really understand that so that we can move the needle in the way that most speaks to our guests, right? And so that's ultimately what we're trying to do, and we want to be part of the movement. We have scale, but at the same time, it has to be profitable for franchisees.
Sure.
So there's some things that can be done, and some things that we're not quite there yet from a distribution perspective. Going farm to table at 1,000 locations is much more difficult than it is at 3 or 4 in one particular DMA. So trying to balance those things and still provide a healthier quality product for our consumers.
Well, it's interesting, too, because it comes back to sort of what is the customer expectation of the Tropical Smoothie brand, because would they really even expect you to go farm to table? I mean, you're sort of responding to what they want of the brand and also what is right for the franchisee. I mean, is that Is that hard? I mean, is it tricky to sort of navigate the divide between them?
It certainly is, and my basic thinking is that we want to move along that continuum. So if you think of Tropical Smoothies consumer base as sort of a bell curve, and let's call it the vegan Pilates instructor on the far right, and the QSR user 4 or 5 days a week, right, at an under $10 check average. I think we live somewhere in the middle of those two things. So that's why that brand study will help us understand. I don't see us moving left. I see us moving right, but how much? How much and how fast is the decision that we as a brand have to make, and our franchisees will be involved in that discussion as well. So it's extremely interesting times, but I think we're well poised, again, with scale to be able to do that and to be able to do it well, whether it's, it's clean label, et cetera. We already have work going against all those things, and quite honestly, not to be boastful, but I think at our scale, if we want to add different product lines, we can do that a lot easier because we're now getting into the scale side. So if we wanted to add bowls or juicing, et cetera, it's less difficult for us. But just adding stuff is not the way to go. Adding the things that our guests want is what we need to do. So a lot of time and research and effort going into that as we speak.
Do consumer trends scare you? I mean, it just feels like they change so quickly. You think of something like, well, let's say poke, a couple years ago suddenly becomes this big thing and it swoops in as the next big thing. But, you also start to see then it pulls back and so consumers move on to the next big thing, I guess. For what you guys are doing, it strikes me that there must be certain ingredients or flavors or whatever that might pop one year and then disappear the next. Is it hard to figure that out? How to ride the wave of the consumer trend without investing too much into something?
So I would say we are not we don't like to be on the bleeding edge.
Yeah, sure.
We'll be on the cutting edge. And the way that we're set up, our core smoothie and food items are core for a reason, because they're purchased a lot and our consumers really like them. We have an LTO program, right? And so that allows us to move and push the needle and test the waters, so to speak. We also have put in the past 12 months a much more robust product development process to allow for more robust testing. At the end of the day, there's 20 restaurant companies that are at scale that have all the bells and whistles that they need. We're continuing to evolve those, and the product development side is a piece that we've invested heavily in. And so I think our LTOs allow us to really try and push the needle out there. We've done a beet smoothie before. Wasn't an incredible seller, but it certainly puts out, hey, the Tropical Smoothie Cafe is a place that I can go to get something a little bit out there. And I've got 4 or 5 different products in the pipeline right now that say the same thing. Wow, these guys can do beets, they can do dragon fruit, they can do all these different things. So it's a timing issue. And quite honestly, yeah, I like to see trends go for 18 to 24 months before I start thinking. They may be in our pipeline, but we're focused on the timing of when that adoption takes place, right? And I think the greatest example for Tropical Smoothie really is, one of our number 2 selling smoothie at this time, our Island Green, which is spinach and kale and pineapple, mango, and banana. We hit the timing on that perfectly in terms of the consumer adoption bell curve. We got to get it. We got to get that right for our brand. There's other brands that can be farther out on that. For us, it has to be right before mainstream is about when we need to hit it.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Last question for you, Charles. When you were mentioning earlier about sort of looking ahead at the next 10 years and prepping the company for further growth and investing and the changes you have to make. What do you foresee for those 10 years? Where do you see this industry going? And sort of the broader, fast casual and QSR industry as well, and how Tropical Smoothie's role in that will be?
So, great question. And I think it's ultimately kind of back to my premise that we have to be prepared for anything, right? If you're getting ready to play another team in basketball or football, you're watching tape and you're seeing what happened. I think history is interesting to look at here as well. We have some unprecedented sort of technology times, but we've been through more minor disruptions in the past. And so studying history, but also going forward and saying, you know what, we want to maintain optionality. We want to maintain the ability to operate our businesses, whatever that environment looks like. And so that's ultimately, we have to pick the ones that we're going to invest in to be there. Digital, third party, et cetera. Yeah, it isn't going away. I can't tell you exactly what form it is, but we have to be able to do that efficiently and effectively. And so that's where a majority of our focus is. But it isn't going away. Convenience is never going away. Value is never going away. So I try to stick to the core tenets of what consumers want to to keep in my head at all times as we look at the next biggest and brightest thing, whether that's a food trend or whether that's a technology trend, and try to weigh those and feather those in as I see them getting to scale.
Sure. That's great. Well, Charles, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate it.